Well, I've been working on the basics of the meaning of the Hebrew numbers and some of the alphabet and the amazing names. I've got two guys that I'm working with going through some insights on that.
Yeah, that's what you said last time. So we're doing a whole study on numbers on Sunday.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, I've got to get the recordings from Molly. So
we spent the whole day on number 1. Did we get into number 2?
No.
I'm gonna get I gotta get the recording from Molly. So there we go.
We started with 0.
Oh yeah, we started with 0.
Yeah, 0. We gotta do 0 first. I understand.
That's low. It means nothing.
Unless you add it to another number.
Yeah. Where are you getting all that info from, anyway?
Actually, Amazing Names has some a printout. Anyway, I can copy it and send it to you, Jim. I've just got the first 10 numbers in it, but it's got all the types of things that you referred to, and of course, and it's got a good description. It says you realize that the use of the word depends on the context it's in. So we've been doing some like Proverbs 29 and stuff. It's really been fun. So thank you.
Well, you're following the same trail we're walking down.
Okay, well, then see,
Have you looked up?
You've fostered a stepchild.
Have you jumped into a thing called grace in Torah?
No, we've been working on the word grace itself.
No, I'm talking about a site on your computer called Grace in. The thing it's called Grace in Torah.
No idea what that means.
If you have a thing, just type in these words, Grace in Torah.
I got it. Okay.
And you'll get the whole layout.
Okay.
Then you put.
Is that an internet website?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And then you can.
Is that Abram?
No, it's not. You mean Abram? No, it's not. It's a completely different group. But it's you'll have studies in letters and in numbers.
Okay.
But the heading of the thing is Grace in Torah.
Okay.
And
we'll do that.
It'll tell you what you just finished telling us already. So you probably won't learn anything, but maybe you will.
I'm excited. It's fun to see the light bulbs go on. You mean I've been missing the meaning of this all along?
I don't know about you, but a lot of people have.
And the first word of the Bible is the one that I'm starting with, and they're going disbelief. So I'm Jim. I may be ostracized here pretty soon, also.
Ostracized? What does that mean? Turned into an ostrich, or what does that mean?
No, I'll be excommunicated if I keep. No, I'm finding fun with working with men. I've got one. I'm working on a second CBMC group, business owners here, and so I'm getting into men of influence in the community for faith. So it's getting really exciting here.
Well, if you get excommunicated, you'll become a member of a big club, because all the great men of God have always been excommunicated or killed, whichever comes first.
A piece that's fun. Yeah, good to hear from you guys. Hey, I'm going to let you go. Blessings to you guys, and shalom, shalom.
All right.
Thank you.
Shalom. Bye, Duane.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Wow. Interesting that he said they're studying numbers and letters, and that's exactly what we've been doing for the last couple of weeks.
I think he started with BERESHEET, but he's doing different. He's bringing that message to them.
Yeah.
Because he saw how powerful the deeper meaning the parables are.
You know about that, don't you, Frank?
A little bit, but
the first word of the Bible.
Okay.
Is you know what it is? First word in Hebrew. The very first word.
Is it in?
That's in English. I'm talking about in Hebrew.
Okay.
First
Yeah.
Hebrew word.
Okay, I don't know what it is.
What is it?
Well, the
Bereshit.
Bereshit. And that's translated. Now you realize that when you translate languages, it doesn't always get it exactly right, but it's translated in English as in the beginning.
okay.
But that's not an accurate translation. In Hebrew, it does not say in the beginning. It says in beginning. There's a difference. If you say in the beginning, that's a point of time. But that's not what it says. It says in beginning. It's like saying, if you're going to explain how you do some process, you say, okay, here's what you start with. Now that has nothing to do with a point of time. It's an action word. It's here's what you do to start. So when it says in beginning God created, it doesn't mean a point of time. It means this is how he began everything. Now that may not seem critical, but it is, because most people, not most, but many who study Genesis, they think that Genesis is about the creation. It's not about creation.
What is it about, Brett?
About God.
Yeah.
If it's going to be about creation, as most people think, then they start discussing creation. And one of the first things they always want to discuss is, what about the 6 days? You listen to the world scientists, they always say, well, the earth is 2 billion years old or something, and endless eons of evolution made this and that and the other happen. But then the Bible teachers say, no, it was 6 24-hour days. And then the scientists say, well, that's nonsense. And the creationists say, well, what you're teaching is anti-God. So argue about creation, and they never get around to what it's really about. And when you argue about things that it's not about, then you're wasting your time. So it's not about creation.
What's the fourth word in the Bible in English? In the beginning, God.
Yes. In Hebrew, the way they speak and teach in Hebrew, is the first word or two defines what the whole thing is about. So if you read any Hebrew lesson or teaching or something, the first couple things they say, this is what it's all going to be about. So when it says in beginning God, they're really, okay, it's going to be about God. So we don't want to waste time arguing about the creation. We just know it's true. It says in beginning God created, all right? Created. Any arguing about that? You can waste your time talking about how long it took him to do it, or the process by which he did it, and so on. And so therefore, now the other thing is, it's only used that word created twice in that first chapter. Only two things. You know what they are? Two places where it talks about something being created. For example, here's a question. Did God create light? Well, the answer is no. Where did light, if he didn't create light, then where did light come from?
Comes from what it comes from.
Well, God is light. Did God create God? It says God is light. So it doesn't say he created light. It says, let the light shine out into the darkness. That's what it says. He didn't create light. He is light. But until something happened, the light was within himself, so it didn't radiate out to anything. So when he says, let the light shine out,
Then he separated the light from the darkness.
yes. So then he starts doing things. So did God create trees?
Nope.
No, he did not.
It's the same word,
What?
isn't it?
What do you mean? He
Let.
didn't?
Yeah.
It says in beginning, or the starting place was he created Hashemim ve'eretz. In Hebrew, that means the heavens and the earth. Okay, if you're talking about the heavens and the earth, what does that cover?
Everything.
Everything. All right. So it's like saying you have a box of tools. So now you need a certain tool. You reach in the box and you pull it out. Did you just create that tool?
No.
It's been there all the time, but now you bring it out. So when it talks about trees, it says,
Brought
let
forth.
the earth bring forth the trees. So when he created the heavens and the earth, the means of having trees was within that creation. So at the proper time, he brings them out. He didn't create them. It doesn't say that. They were created within what started. And it goes on and on. He
Till the
says, for
sixth
example,
day.
let the earth bring forth the living creatures, the animals. Again, they weren't created then. They were already in the creation, but now it's time to bring them out. It even says on the fourth day, the sun and the moon appears. Now, we already have light, and in fact it says he separated the light from the darkness. The light he called day, and the darkness he called night. That's, of course, the English translation. Night in Hebrew is Lila, but it doesn't matter. So on the very first day, or the beginning day, it was already day and night, but we don't hear about the sun and the moon until the fourth day. Well, in our understanding, what makes day and night? The way we see it, what makes day and night?
The sun.
The sun.
Yeah.
Depends on the earth rotating. If you're on the side where the sun shines, we got daytime. If you're on the other side, it's night. But the first mention of that, the sun and the moon, is on the fourth day. How could there be day and night on the beginning day, but we don't see the sun until the fourth day? Well, he didn't say he created the sun on the fourth day. It says the sun appeared. If you go out right now, can you see stars right now?
If it's not cloudy.
Can you see them right now?
No,
Why not?
because they haven't appeared.
Well, why not?
Because they're
being
blocked.
obscured.
Well, they're there, aren't they?
Yeah.
Then how come you can't see them? Because there's clouds there. It says the earth was covered with a cloud to begin with.
Firmament.
So even on a cloudy day, you can still see when it's daytime, can't you? But you don't see the sun. So if you'd never seen the sun before, and someone asks you, how come it's light? You wouldn't know. I don't know why it's light. It's light.
We call this day.
But we know it's light because the sun's out there, but it doesn't appear. So on the fourth day, the sun and the moon appeared. The clouds were beginning to break up enough to where it could be shown. But who did it appear to? Was there anybody around at that point on the fourth day?
God.
no people.
There was trees, and trees don't see the sun. However, they're vastly affected by the sun, aren't
Is
they?
it the fifth day that all the animals came out? So just the
Yeah.
fish in the sea on the fourth day?
No living creature other than trees and grass, it
Okay.
says. The plants, they were there. But the only one who could see the light or the sun and moon would be God himself. So the next time we see the word create is when God said, let's make man in our image. And the word is from the Hebrew, he created. The word in Hebrew is bara. He created the man out of the elements of the earth. And of course, when it says he created the man from the elements, or it says from the dust, but every scientist who studies pathology can tell you what's a body made out of.
Mostly water and carbon.
Yeah, and it's got iron and zinc and manganese and many other elements within the body. So your body is made out of the same stuff that everything else is made out of that's made. So he creates from the elements what he called a man. the word Adam means the man of the earth.
Dust, yeah.
That's really what it means. Or the man of blood, because the
Red.
Dam means blood. So there is a form that would look like, we'd think it looked like a statue or just a mannequin, just a thing that looks like a man, but it just lays there. It's made out of everything. The elements are made of the earth, but it can't do anything because it's not living. Then it says he breathed into it life.
What's the word for breath?
Ruach.
Ah,
Yeah.
like spirit.
Ruach Hodesh is the Holy Spirit. Ruach literally means air or wind or breath or spirit. So spirit is nothing but moving air. You know, what's the difference between still air and wind is just the air is moving. If air is not moving, it's still air, but we don't call it wind until it's moving.
Right.
So when God breathed into Adam, he literally breathed his own life into Adam.
That's my name. Breath.
And then it says man became a living soul. Up until that time, he's just a form. Looks like something, but there's no life. So that's the next time you see the word create. So God created twice.
Heavens and earth.
Heavens and the earth. Brought out everything that was within them. And then he comes to the man. So up until then, just before the man was created, what did everything look like?
Paradise.
If you could see the earth at that point before the man was created, what would you be looking at?
Greenery.
Wilderness and animals.
How's everything going there?
Beautiful.
Pretty good.
Perfect. Anything dying?
No.
Any
Disease, illness,
any
nothing.
disease? Yeah, everything is just exactly perfect. And why is it perfect?
God made it that way.
Because he made it. God had to make him perfect stuff. So then he makes the man. Now up until then, everything that was in existence was exactly the way God made it. And he finishes up with his evaluation. When he looked at what he had made, what did he say about it?
Every day it was
Tov.
good until the end. The 6th day.
At the sixth day,
He said it was.
then he gave it a evaluation. He used the words tov me'od, which means very good. If God says something is very good, then how good is it?
Can't be improved upon.
Yeah. When we put the word very on anything, it makes it absolute, doesn't it? Okay, everything is perfect. The creatures are doing exactly what they're made to do. Is any lion attacking any zebras
Nope.
that day, or any disease, or any?
Nope.
No animal hurts it. Nothing hurts. Then he creates the man. Now, something happened when he created the man that was different from every other thing.
He made it like himself.
In what way?
In his image, it says.
There's a certain thing about him that's different from all the other creatures.
He was to rule over the earth. No.
And his breath, too.
The spirit was in him.
Yeah.
God's spirit was breathed in him. God didn't breathe the spirit into anything else.
But there's something very
There's free
special
will.
about Adam. He is given choice.
Yeah.
You take a goose. Why do the goose fly south every winter?
He doesn't know why. It just does.
Do the geese sit around and have a conference and decide where they're going to go and what day they'll leave on, or exactly where they're going to arrive? They don't.
Goose conference. There'd
They
be a lot of
just
honking.
do it every year. Every year they do it, and when it's spring they all come back, and they don't
Fish are
make
the
a
same
choice.
way.
They just do it. Why do they do those things? It's just built into their nature. This is what you do. But with Adam, God says, "Here's what I want you to do." Does he have to do it?
No, because he has free choice.
When he says to the geese, "You have to fly south every winter," they don't choose, and they just do it. Why do they do it? Because that's built right into them. But God built into Adam the choice thing. You got to choose. So everything that Adam does, and you are descendants of Adam, every single thing you do begins with a choice, doesn't it? What are you doing here at 6 o'clock in the morning?
Choice.
There's other people who won't come. You could invite them, they won't come. Why not?
Their choice.
You choose not to. And there's nothing necessarily righteous about us doing this and somebody else not, but the point is, you do what you choose to do. So when God says to Adam, you can do anything you want in this garden. You can eat anything you want. It's all good for you. You can. Your position here is to be the keeper of the garden, or you might say you're the chief garden man. And the word garden, by the way, does not refer to some little point in the world in the Middle East.
The whole world.
The whole creation is God's garden. All right. So Adam was given the position of being over all that. He said, "You're in charge."
And what did God tell man to do?
Take good care of it, and he never
Be fruitful and multiply.
Yeah. Be fruitful, which you provide him the means to do that, multiply, so there'll be more of you. And if everything went exactly as he had given him, it would have been a wonderful thing. But he did give him that point of choice. That's extremely important. If he didn't give him any choice, then Adam would just do what he'd made to do and everything would be roses and clover. However, why didn't God want it that way?
God wanted man to choose to love him.
Yeah. If he just does like an innate, or like a goose traveling south, then he's just a puppet. Take a little puppet hanging on strings, and the guy pulls the string up and his hand goes up. And that's fine, but God doesn't want puppets. If someone loves you because they have no choice but to love you, is that good?
Well, man was created to worship.
I said,
God
if someone loves you because they can't do anything else,
yeah.
then what's that? That's not love.
No.
Love is real love is always based on choice. They love you because they want to love you, because they see in you something to love. So it always involves choice. So when he said, here's going to be a test for you, the way you test someone's choice is you give them something to choose. We have a word, a little phrase called, there's two sides to every story. What does that mean?
Don't just take the first story you hear.
No.
No.
If we say there's two sides to every story, what does that mean?
There's opinions. People, if there's a car accident here and 3 people saw it from different angles, they'd all have a different view of the same thing that happened.
So if you say there's two sides, and I say to you there's two sides to this story, you have to do something right now. What?
Figure out both sides of it.
And choose.
You got to make a choice. Which side are you going to agree with?
Yeah.
Or if you're on a trail you've never been on before, and suddenly you come to a fork in the trail, what do you have to do right then?
Choose.
You got to make a choice. Do I go that way or that way? So choice always involves an alternate, this side or that side. That's the way it always is. So if you want to find out if somebody is obeying God, just give them two choices or two alternates, and whichever one they decide, that's going to decide. So people say, well, where did Satan come from? Where did he come from?
Created.
He's created. Now, a very popular teaching among the evangelicals especially is that Satan used to be a good guy and then he went bad. They teach that all over the place, that he was a good guy and turned bad. But the Apostle John wrote he was a murderer from the beginning.
The father of all
He's
lies.
he's the father of lies, and he was a murderer from the beginning. So when did he start being a bad guy?
For always been.
He's always been. He was created that way. Do you mean to say that God created something bad? Well, yes, matter of fact. Why?
Choice.
Because he's honest. God says, I want you to choose. If you only have one thing to choose, and that's always right, then you're always going to do right. But what's that got to do with choosing? In order to choose, there must be something on the other side. There's got to be the two sides to the story. So God says, this is the right way, this is the evil way. Now you choose. And so God says, I'm begging you, don't go that way. That's not good, but I can't make you that way because it's your choice. If you want to go upside down, okay. But I'm providing the right way, and this is what I give my advice. He told Adam, do not partake of that particular fruit. Did he say you cannot take of that fruit? If he said you can't take it, then he couldn't take it. But he said, don't do it. And if he says, don't do something, right then you have to do what?
Choose.
You got to choose. Am I going to obey that or not? And so you look at Adam now, what did he do?
He listened to his
He
wife
chose-
and chose.
Well, he listened to his wife, who would listen to the demonic spirit. And when she listened to the demonic spirit, she also had to make a choice, didn't she?
Yeah.
She could have said to the spirit, I got to go talk to my husband Adam before I make a choice. She could have done that. And Adam could have said, my God says choose the right thing. He could have done that. But, so, this whole thing is, yes, Satan was created by God. He created evil. In fact, there's a place, I'll have to look this one up, but it's God says, I create good and I create evil. Think about it. Everything that exists came from somewhere. How many creators do we have?
One.
So whatever there is, God created it. But we realize there's only one reason he created what is evil, is to give you an honest choice. So if he didn't do that, then you remember in the old Soviet Union.
So does that mean that Satan never had a choice to be good or evil? He just always was created that
evil.
way.
Now it does say that he also drew the way it's worded, 1/3 of the angels with him. It says that. Now that may be taken literally or figuratively, but 1/3 of anything is the smaller side of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it says all the angels. Now angels are spirits that God created them, but they're not puppets either. They're not just robots, Every one of them was given a choice. So in other words, if an angel serves God, it's because he chose to do that. God gave them a choice. Now it says 1/3 of them decided to follow the demonic spirit. Why did they decide that way?
Yeah, you'd think that angels were messengers of God and they didn't have a choice, but it sounds like they do get a choice.
They chose. But, for example, the choice was, do you want to serve God or serve the demonic spirit? That's your two sides. Serve means to be a slave or a servant of. If you choose to serve Satan, what do you become?
A demon?
Enslaved.
You become a slave. And if you're a slave, slaves do not have choice. For example, when the Hebrews were slaves in Egypt, did Pharaoh get up every morning and say, okay, I want some volunteers to make bricks today. Who would like to make bricks? Is that how it is done? He just said, you will make bricks today. Do you have a choice? You're a slave. So if you choose to be a slave to Satan, what are you going to do?
You can do whatever he does.
Will you have any choice? Okay, so you're a slave. You do what you're told.
Yeah.
How long will you be a slave to Satan if you choose to be a slave? For 1 year?
Forever.
That's forever. It goes on. There's no escape for slave. On the other hand, if you choose to serve God, what happens to your choice?
You still have 1,000 more to make.
That's right, because the choice never leaves you. You're always there. Every minute of every day. You've already chosen to know God. So, but God has not made you to be a slave. He's made you to be a son. And that's a huge difference. Now, rightly, the Son does the will of the Father. But God has always given you that position. Even the Son must make a decision. When the Father says, here's what I want, at that minute, the Son has to decide, doesn't he? But the other thing about it is, God treats his Son differently than he would a slave.
Amen.
If a slave doesn't want to obey, what happens?
Beat.
Yeah.
He gets beat. If God had
Consequences.
slaves,
Yeah.
a big part of his time would be beating on slaves, wouldn't he? But he's made you into children or to sons, and he treats you differently. Now, a son gets a discipline. I said this, God never punishes his children. Never punishes children. Never.
It disciplines them.
What's the difference between punish and discipline?
Discipline is to lead them to the correct
Yeah.
decision.
Corrective over punitive.
Punishment is to make you pay for what you did. Discipline is to get you back on the right track. Now, discipline can be either very gentle, it could be nothing but a little word, don't go there, or it could be rough and tough, depending on the situation. But it's always for the purpose of getting you back where things are right. It's for your good. The purpose of discipline is for your good. The reason for it is because of the love of God. Because God loves you. It says, a good father who loves his children is careful to discipline them. That's in Proverbs. But punishment, you don't do punishment to set people right. You punish them to make them pay for what they did. If you had to pay for all your wrongs, what would it cost?
Couldn't afford it.
You couldn't pay it. You'd pay until the end because you could never do enough. So the Lord said, I have paid the price for your sin. So God punishes the Lord to pay for our sin. Then he disciplines us to make us right. And but a slave is different, isn't it? A slave is just forced to do whatever you want him to do, that's all. He has no choice, you just make him do it. But sons are always given that position of choosing. And so, thankfully, if God took away the principle of choice from us, we'd just be puppets after that. And that's not what God wants. If you want a good wife, you don't want a mannequin that you bought in a clothing store. It looks like a woman, only it's just a dead piece of object. That's no wife, you know. You want one that makes choices because she wants to be with you, cares about you. So choices always puts our will voluntarily into subjection to God. So that's really important to see that, because if we think that we're just slaves, well then slaves never choose. You know,
That's where I think some people believe like fatalism, like we don't have a choice.
yeah.
That we could do whatever we want because it
What's
doesn't
going on
matter.
here?
Keep pouring.
Is the lid gonna fall off?
No.
I've seen pictures where you go to pour and all of a sudden it dumps all over America.
You know, I've been thinking about the question of do I want what God has for me? And that's really the only question.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, because you know, you think about it in religious terms. You know, did you get baptized, or you know, every day you make that choice. Do I want what God has for me? Because like when I decided to follow God, I was trying to get out of hell. You know, that was what I was.
Yeah.
That's what I understood.
That's what you were raised with.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's what I understood I would get. I would
Hell
say,
and
okay,
damnation or God's way.
I'm coming to God because, you know, it was like a binary thing. I was at 0. A 0 goes to hell. If you got a 1, you go to heaven. So I was like, I'm going to make the switch over. I'm going to get a 1 instead of a 0. And I didn't know that God had a lot more for me. And he had a lot better things than just not hell.
Mm-hmm.
And so as I learned, you know, I have a choice. Do I want to continue with this? And I think that's the mercy and grace of God because I didn't know what I was getting into.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why we have the symbolism of you're changing your life, because it's not a symbol, it's a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
You are trading in yourself for what God has for you,
Born again.
because that's what I want. I want what God has for me rather than what I get on my own and what I
So what's
pay
my
for, my
what's my
wages.
prayer every week at church?
That you would be in the will of God or something to that effect.
Yeah, that my will would be God's will.
You know, what you're just saying there, it reminds me of when Yeshua was in the Garden of Gethsemane just before his arrest. He's praying, and this is a very, very common teaching. He prays, "Let this cup pass from me, but not my will, but yours be done."
Yep.
And so every teacher I've ever heard says he sees the terrible cross coming, the crucifixion, and he's saying, can I get out of this? Can't this go away? But not my will, but yours. If I say, not my will, let's do your will, then that indicates that my will is different from your will. If you do it my way, that wouldn't be your way. If you do it your way, it wouldn't be my way. Is there a difference between the will of the Son and the will of the Father?
It's the same.
It says all the fullness of Godhead dwells in him bodily. So how can he be contrary to what the Father wills? But he's not saying that. He's saying, I'm a servant. A servant. I've come to serve you, and a servant does not have a will. What does a servant do?
What the master wants.
The very second the servant does anything of his own will, he's not a servant anymore. He's running his own show. So he said, even this most desperate time, I'm still your servant. So whatever happens, I'm not throwing my will into it. It's only one will here that matters, and that's your will. I have no will. I'm just a servant. The other thing, when he said, let this cup pass, it's always interpreted, or most people, that he's talking about the crucifixion.
Where was he when he said that? In the garden.
Yes,
And who was around him?
he was being surrounded by demonic spirits. You know, the last person there is that did not want the crucifixion was Satan himself. Because if the crucifixion happens, then what occurs? If it goes ahead, what happens?
He, the Satan loses.
He loses, and God's will is done to provide salvation for us. The desperate thing that Satan was trying to do was prevent the crucifixion. Now, that doesn't mean he wants to save the Lord, but he wants to kill him in that garden. In Psalm 40, it says, Psalm 40 is a picture of it. He says he's down on his knees praying, and he's surrounded by innumerable evil spirits. If God says something is innumerable, then how many of them are there?
Too many to count.
I mean, you can't count them. If God says they can't be counted, we can't even estimate how many. But he said, I'm surrounded. It would be that every evil spirit that exists was around him. And they said in Psalm 40, they say, now that he is down, he will not get up again. Well, he was down in the garden. What was he doing in the garden?
Praying.
He's praying. And it says he was sweating drops of blood. Any medic will tell you he was a quarter inch from death right there. And these enemies are pounding. They want him dead. If he dies in the Garden of Gethsemane, there will be no crucifixion. There will be no resurrection. What will happen to your salvation if he dies in Gethsemane?
Lost.
It's done. So there'd be no hope for anybody if they could kill him in the garden. And if they could kill him in the garden, who would have won?
Satan.
Satan would have won. If he could kill the Lord, who is the fullness of the Godhead, what's he just done?
Be God.
He's destroyed God. And then who becomes God? Satan. That was his goal. So the Lord said, let this cup pass. That's an emergency cry out to God. Come and help me, save me, because they're trying to destroy me. If you don't come, I will not be able to do what you sent me to do. I'm ready to do it. I'm serving your will. All I need is your protection because these enemies are trying to stop. And so that prayer was an emergency SOS. And it says, in Psalm, says, come quickly to save me. When the Son calls to the Father, come quickly. What does he mean by that?
Rescue me from this?
Does Father say, well, I'm busy right now, but I'll come and help you when I get through? When he says, come quickly, what does he mean?
I need you now.
I need you now. Not 1 minute from now, right now. So where is he right now when he prays that?
Right there.
Right there in that garden, surrounded by these evil spirits who are trying to kill him. He screams out for emergency help. Did help come?
Yes.
Yeah, it says the Lord sent angels. They came and they drove these evil spirits away, and they literally gave him first aid, got him back up again, and now he goes back to his sleeping disciples. He'd asked them to stay awake and pray, but they couldn't stay awake, so he goes and wakes them. Okay, you guys, we just won the battle. Now we got the job to do. Let's go. So when he said, not my will, he didn't mean my will is different from yours, but he said, I don't have a will. I'm just a servant. It's only your will here that matters, and that's what has to be done. So it's kind of sad that a lot of people have missed that point. But then when they say, not my will but yours, I've heard it taught just like this, that as he saw the approaching crucifixion, his humanity came in with fear and with dread and all that kind of thing. Can you sneak up on God and surprise him?
No.
He's been planning this since before the foundation of the world, it says, and then tell him at the very last minute he's going to try to bug out of it. That makes no sense whatever.
He came for a job and a purpose.
Yeah.
And
He's the only reason he's
completed it.
here. If it was me, yeah, I'd try to get out of it, but he's not me, thankfully. He is God, and he's not trying to get out of what he came to do. He says, I have to have your protection in order to do it because the enemy's right there. So
Some people take comfort in their construction of who they think Jesus is because he was tempted, because he went through those, because he said, "Oh, I don't really want to do this, God."
yeah,
Were those? Was he really tempted?
yeah, you just threw in a word that
Right.
needs to be addressed. You know what it is.
But see, people really have that question because they've been taught so much that Jesus had the same temptations as we did.
That word tempt,
Yeah.
it's the wrong word. In the Hebrew, what's been translated as tempt should be test. Test. If it's the Apostle James wrote, a man is tempted when he's drawn away by his own lust.
And
In other words,
enticed.
a lure that appeals to your lust.
Snatched.
How much lust does the Lord have?
None.
So there's nothing to appeal. But the word test is quite different. If you were a manufacturer of glulam beams, and every so often they have to run tests to make sure they're good enough. So they have two types of tests. They have destructive tests and non-destructive tests. So let's say you're making glue lambs or some kind of beam for a certain structure, and the engineer says it has to be able to withstand 50 tons, and with the deflection of no more than
Half inch.
1 centimeter or something. So you put your test model on the stand, you put 50 tons on, you measure the deflection. As long as it stays within the tolerance, it's okay. That's called a non-destructive test. You only have to put 50 tons on. As long as it can hold that up, okay. But a destructive test says you keep putting pressure on until it breaks. Maybe it broke at 84 tons. At 84 tons, it's finished. So the purpose of a test is to see if it's good enough or if it's right. That's the reason for it. So it says the Lord sent, or God sent the Yeshua into the wilderness for a test, not to be tempted. You can't tempt God. It says God doesn't tempt anybody, and he cannot be tempted. But you can test God. Every time you make a decision, you're testing God, aren't you? See what he'll say. So here comes Satan, and Satan never voluntarily approaches God. It says he's so frightened by God, he trembled at his very presence. But he was summoned by God to meet Yeshua in the wilderness. And if God issues you a summons, what does that mean?
Better show up.
Yeah.
That's not, a summons is not an invitation.
No.
A summons is an order. You must appear. All right, so he sends Satan a summon. You meet Yeshua in the wilderness. So what does Satan have to do?
He has to
There's
do
no
it.
choice. So he meets him. Now God says, I'm going to use you to test him. Throw him half your ammunition.
No, all of it.
The whole 9 yards, right? Give him everything you've got. Now the test, is this going to be a destructive test or a non-destructive test?
Destructive test.
Because Satan wants to destroy him. All right, now, in a non-destructive test, you're going to put pressure on it. As long as the deflection isn't more than whatever, it's okay. When Satan put the pressure on the Lord, how much did he deflect?
None.
0. Nothing. It's a destructive. How much pressure does he put on him?
It's all that he has.
Everything he's got. And how much deflection is there?
0.
0. Okay, now it says, in that he, now sadly the translations say, in that he was tempted like we are. Well, if he's tempted like I am, then he's the same way I am. But it clearly says he cannot be tempted, but he can be tested. I'm tested, he's tested the same way. When I'm tested,
It's a temptation.
sorry about it,
we
but
might
it
deflect.
doesn't, it collapses because I can't pass the test. But since he's tested the same way, and he not only passes, but he is not in any way affected by it, then he can come to help me. If you're down in the water drowning, you want somebody to come after you that can't swim?
No.
If he's the same way you are, well, he'll just drown with you. You want somebody to come who's not affected by that. That's the one that
We
can
want
help
somebody
you.
that's been tested and approved.
And proven to be able to pass the test.
Yeah.
If you got somebody that's tested just like you are, well, you're tested and you fail. You want another failure to come try to help you? That just means 2 of you are going to die.
You're going to swim out to you and you're going to say, what, you want me to save you?
Yeah. So when it says he was tested or tempted, throw that word out. He was tested like we are. We would fail, but he does not fail. So therefore, he can help you when you're in trouble.
Which is a better
See how that
option.
makes sense? If they say he's just tempted like we are, well, then he's got the same problem that I got. So what good is he going to do? You know. So that weakens his position when they. And it's sad that the translators put that word in there. Anybody who studies Hebrew would know that that's not the right word. Test doesn't mean tempt. It's not even a similar word. And so I don't know why they put that in the translation, but they did. Almost every English Bible will say
So if
tempted.
people are looking for comfort, that they can be helped in their trials, then they needed someone who withstood trials,
Yeah.
not who can relate to you on that you have been tested.
Yeah.
You want somebody that has broken all the rules for anything that the enemy can throw at you. You want somebody that's withstood that.
You use the word comfort too. If you need comfort, and someone that comes to you who also needs comfort, how much good are they going to do you? We are comforted not by someone else who needs comfort, but we're comforted by the one called the Comforter, the one who can do it. So
Who doles out comfort.
if they keep saying his troubles are just like my troubles, well then we both got troubles. You know, who's going to help him if he's got the same trouble I got? You know, we'd all be dead. You know, but thankfully he was pressured by the enemy to try to disprove him, but he proved out to be absolutely perfect. So when remember in that story where Satan he threw three things at the Lord. He had three pieces of ammunition. Remember what they were, the three things?
Jump off this
Bread.
The wall?
Was the first one.
Well, the first thing was make stones into bread.
okay.
He'd been starved for 40 days. How long have you ever gone one time without eating? How long?
3 days for me.
Me too, 3 of you.
Definitely not even a day.
How do you feel at the end of that day?
Weak.
Exhausted.
Yeah. Are you in a position to fight off an enemy when you haven't had anything to eat for some time?
Probably not.
You're weak. So here's the Lord. He's gone for 40 days. And how he could do it, I don't know, except by the power of God. But he'd be so close to death, you couldn't get him. In fact, he's not out there walking around. He's down on his face in the dirt, this close to death. And so the Lord weakens him as weak as he could possibly make him. That's all for the purpose of God. This is going to be a test, remember. If he tested him when he's at his strength, it wouldn't prove much. So now we make him so weak that one little flick would nail him. So he says, Satan, okay, come over here and throw everything you got at him. He can't be any weaker than this. So the first thing he says is, make the stones into bread. Could he do that?
Oh yeah.
Does he have the power to
Yes.
make stones into bread?
Yes.
How good would the bread be?
Perfect. Best
He
bread you
needs
ever
bread.
had.
He's starving. But if he did that, what would be wrong with that?
It would be him serving his own desires.
And also serving Satan
He'd
because
be
Satan
serving
is
Satan's the one who suggested it.
is like testing him. Hey, go! You can do that. Go ahead and do it. It's almost like he's following Satan's will instead of
Exactly.
God's will.
So he answers now. Every time Satan said anything to him, Satan quoted out of the book of Psalms. So the quotation for the bread came from Psalms. He is the bread of life.
Yeshua answered out of
That's Deuteronomy, which is the law. He says, the man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from God. That come out of Deuteronomy. So he says to Satan, you're using the prayer book, but the only words for you come out of God's law. So he throws that right back at him. It's okay, he lost round one. So now he throws the second thing at him. What was the second thing?
jumping off the
Jump off
the high wall.
Yeah. So here's the wall around the Temple Mount. And we was at that place. There's a wall there. It's about, I'd say, 60, 70 feet tall. A big stone wall. Jump off of this. And then Satan quoted out of Psalms again. He'll give his angels charge over you so you won't even stub your toe when you hit the rocks. That would prove you're God. Don't you want everybody to know that you're the Lord? And again, he quoted out of Deuteronomy for him. He says, you do not tempt the Lord your God. You don't try him like this. You don't use presumption. You could say, well, I don't need to lock my car door because God will protect it. So we'll just park it in the worst place in town and leave it wide open with the key in it.
Yeah.
God will take care of it. Could God take care of your car?
Sure.
Do you dare do that?
No, you don't.
Why not?
Don't presume.
You cannot presume on God. God said, "Oh, you want to play that game, do you? Not only your car going to get stolen, it's going to wreck somebody else, and you're going to be liable for your lifetime." I mean, you don't play that game with God. So the Lord again threw that back into Satan's face. Now that was round 2. Throws the third thing at him. What's the third thing?
I'll give you all these kingdoms.
Takes him up, it says, into a high mountain where you see all. When I says he'd see all the kingdoms of the world, all I can say is he put him in such a position that he could see everybody who's ever lived on the face of the earth from Adam till now. And Satan says to him, "I'll give you every one of these on one condition.
Serve me.
You bow down to me." Now, of course, 2 things wrong with that thought. One is that he can't give him to him because he doesn't own it. Says the earth is the Lord's and everything in it.
Yeah.
How can Satan give you anything? He doesn't own anything.
No.
But he presumes to. And then the other thing, the other side of it was, if you bow down to me. If the Lord did that, who would become God?
Satan.
Satan. He would have elevated
He
himself.
would have won.
So the Lord throws that back at him. He says, "You only serve God, and Him only do you serve, no others." At that point, Satan left. Why did he leave?
Because he got beat.
Well, he didn't leave because he got beat. He got released from the summons.
Okay. Yeah,
The Lord, he could not leave until God gave him permission to leave.
that's true.
So God said, "Okay, I'm done with you. You can go now." And do you think Satan just calmly walked away?
No,
Shot
he was
away.
mad.
I think he fled in terror. He lost everything. He'd thrown every bit of ammunition he had at the Lord, and the Lord did not falter even slightly. Now it says as soon as that was done, then the angels came again, and
Minister.
paramedic angels showed up and got the Lord back going. He was almost dead. But how much did Satan gain from that?
He saw the power of God.
What he gained?
He didn't gain anything.
In fact, he
He
already
was
knew
put
who God
back
is.
into his place.
And
He
his
got
He wants to
checkmated.
be like God.
his entire
But he can't
ammo
be.
pile didn't have any effect.
Yeah.
Now, this was not done in order to prove anything to Satan. Satan doesn't need to know anything about God. He already knows who God is. Who's he doing this for?
For us.
Us.
For us.
Yeah.
He wants us to know this is the Savior that came for you. Satan threw everything he possibly could at him, and it had no effect whatsoever. If he can't do anything to hinder who the Savior is, then that Savior is able to save you, because that's the one that the greatest power outside of God there is Satan, and he couldn't do anything to him. So if he can't do anything to the Lord, how about for you? Can you trust that?
Yes.
So that's the whole point of it. And
It's funny how just a couple little interpretations from Hebrew to English changes everything.
yeah, and I don't say you got to learn Hebrew, but it sure don't hurt to look things up and see what it really says, because, and it's not to badmouth the translators. They did the best they could, and in most cases they do pretty well. But sometimes, you know, if you were translating anything from God's word into another language, you think Satan wants you to do that?
Yeah, he wants us
He
to
wants you-
translate
he
it
wants
to
you-
make mistakes.
Well, yeah, but he doesn't want the truth to go. He wants
That's
to,
what I mean.
so he will sneak in. He wouldn't walk right in and say, "Oh, none of that's true." He'll say it's all true except one little point, and just change that.
Like he
one.
did to
that
Eve.
won't hurt anything.
You surely won't die.
Yeah, yeah, change that, just that one point, and then go ahead and teach it. Satan will, that's fine. That
So
looks good.
how much does Satan want you to get off track?
Just a quarter of an inch. Yeah, that's right.
Just a little bit.
You know, if you were flying from here to Hawaii, you'd want to fly at 180 degrees, dead south. What if you flew at 181 degrees?
You'd be
You know
lost
what'll
in the
happen?
ocean.
You won't
You'd
even
open the
see it
middle.
when you go by.
Go
You'll
right
be-
by it.
You'll be hundreds of miles off, and you'll join Amelia Earhart out there in the middle of the Pacific somewhere. So Satan he doesn't tell you the whole thing's wrong. He just say, this one little word didn't really mean that. Let's just move it over here a little bit. Okay. And so there you go. And then next thing you know, you missed your point. So we need to be continuously offering our thoughts and our actions to God. You know, one of the prayers of the Psalm says, let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable to you. So meditate in your heart, the things you think about. How many times do you think about things that probably are not acceptable to God? But the prayer is, may it be. So not only what you say and therefore what you do, but also even what you think. It's like when the Lord says you must present yourself as a living sacrifice to God, what about the thoughts in your head? They better go there too.
So go back to Genesis, the beginning. So God creates the first day and the sixth day, and he said it's very good.
Yeah.
And then the seventh day, he decides to sit back and look at what he's created, maybe.
Yeah.
Or
Well,
the Bible
yeah.
is another word. It says that he rested.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he did rest, and the
Well-
thought process that you always gave me, that, and it's in somewhere in the New Testament, is we rest in the Lord.
Yeah.
Every day is a rest day when we have the Lord in our heart.
Well, one thing we want to think about too.
Every day is
when we use the
special.
word rest, you've done a long, hard day's work of something, and say, okay, it's time to go rest. What do you mean by that? What's this respite? What is that about?
Blanket in the couch.
What's that? Yeah.
Blanket in the couch.
Yeah. So you're worn out. You can't do anything
Exhausted.
else. So when
Do
you
something
say,
different.
I want to rest, it's because I'm so tired and I'm so broken down and I need to be restored. So you got to take the rest of the day off or whatever. So
God didn't get
every
tired.
time
though.
we see those words in the Genesis, it says, God said, let this be.
Yeah.
And it was. Let that be. And it was. Let this be. Does that sound like hard work?
No.
Then what's he resting from? He's so tired of saying let there be that I got to take a day off just from saying that. It doesn't say he was tired. It said he rested. And again, the translation says rest. But the word Sabbath, which is the name of the last day, does not mean rest. It means stop or cease. Stop. So here you've been building a house for 6 days, and on the seventh day you stop. Does that mean you don't do anything? What does it mean?
Stop building. Different.
Stop building
doing
a house.
that.
So today we're going to have a picnic instead. We just have a barbecue and sit around and talk and laugh and eat. That doesn't mean you're not doing anything, but you're not working. You're not doing the work that you did for 6 days. So when it says on the Sabbath, the way that constantly teach, the Pharisees all said you can't do any work on the Sabbath. No work. One guy was healed and he picked up a little mat that he'd been laying on and walking. The Pharisees wanted to stone him to death for that. They say you're working on the Sabbath. It didn't say you can't do anything. It says you don't do your regular work. Well, what was God's regular work for 6 days?
Creation.
Creating. So he stopped that.
He was done.
It doesn't mean he didn't do anything. He stopped creating. So what did he do then on that seventh day? Wasn't creating, and there's nothing more got created. Creation was done. But there was an argument that the Pharisees threw to the Lord about the Sabbath day. Not supposed to do any kind of work is what they did. You can't do anything. The Lord said, suppose one of you has an ox and he falls into a pit on the Sabbath day. You would rescue him, wouldn't you? Would that be a violation of Sabbath?
No.
Every Pharisee would do it. If they had an ox and it fell in a ditch, they would get him out. and it would not be a violation. Why not? It's hard work. How much does a big ox weigh? A big ox?
Maybe 1,400 pounds.
And he falls into a pit, and you're going to go down there and get him out. How do you get him out? You have no equipment, no tools or nothing. How are you going to get that ox out of the pit?
A lot of work.
How do
Get in
you
the
do
mud
it?
with them. Get another ox.
Okay.
Get 'em harnessed
Now you got
up.
one down the pit that's been injured maybe, and he's frightened, and you're going to climb down there with him to tie a rope on him. Would that be dangerous?
Oh yes.
What if he gores you? He's hurt already, and now you're coming down there. He's going to think you're here to attack him or something. And even if it doesn't hurt you, how long is it going to take you to get the job done? You're going to do it in 10 minutes?
Could be all day.
You'll probably work all that. That'll be the hardest day's work you ever did. And you may come away from it injured, sore, and tired like nothing else. The hardest day's work you ever did on the day you're not supposed to do any work, and that would not be a violation because it's not your regular work. This is emergency rescue work. And that's okay. So, here your house is on fire and it's on the Sabbath. You call the fire department and they say, well, we're closed today, but we'll be happy to serve you Monday morning. Is that going to do it? You're burning right now. When you call the fire department, do they look at the clock or the
Call
calendar?
back when we're open.
They say, hey, we're a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week emergency rescue operation. That's what we do. So on the seventh day, the whole creation fell into the pit when Adam rebelled against God. The creatures began to hurt each other. The viruses came into the plants. The place got on fire. I mean, the whole place was a mess. The entire creation fell into the ditch on the seventh day. And what did God do? He went into rescue work to rescue his fallen creation, and he's been doing that ever since. And so he says he came into the world to save the creation, to save sinners. What's the hardest work that God has ever done? Creation? Let there be this, let there be that. Was that hard? What's the hard part that he did?
The rescue work.
Rescue work, which involved the death and burial and resurrection of the Lord, the crucifixion, the abuse that he took, and that was the hardest day's work he's ever done, and it was done on Sabbath. So, this concept that you can't take a broom and sweep out the dirt on Sabbath had nothing to do with that. That was just, the Sabbath was a picture of the Lord stopping his regular work and going into rescue. And so that's been doing it ever since, doing it right now. And if God did not work on Sabbath, when would we ever get rescued? If he didn't do anything, what hope would anybody have if God
It's
did
just
not?
like when Jesus called for God to come down and help him. He's there immediately.
Exactly. And if
So-
your ox fell in the pit on Sabbath and you don't rescue him, you know what's going to happen to your ox? He's going to die down
Yeah.
there. So he
Or
needs
you're
to
going
be,
to die trying to get him out.
But you're not going to try because you don't work on the Sabbath.
Oh, that's true.
So your animal is going to die
Yeah.
because there's no one to rescue him. So Sabbath is not a day to not do anything. It's a day to stop your regular work, but you always are open for rescue work, always. And so that's what the Lord's been doing, rescue him. He says he came to save. He came to rescue those who were lost. And this, businesses operate on calendars. We're open Monday through Friday, or we're open from 8 till 6 or something. Businesses look at calendars, they look at dates on a thing, they look at locations. God doesn't operate on a calendar or on a clock or on a location.
Today, here, and now.
Yeah, he works today, and he works here, and he works now. So whatever the need is, God doesn't look at his time clock to see if it's time to go to work. The time God goes to work is when work needs to be done, and that's now. So, You know, there's a place, or several places where it says, call on the Lord while it's called today. Or today, if you'll hear his voice, call on him. Or now is the accepted time, it says. Not Sunday, not, you know. People put times and dates on everything. Well, can't work today because this is my day off. If you prayed and God said, well, I'd like to help you, but today is my day off, what good would that do? You know, God never says that to anybody. So, thanks to God for all that, huh?
It's always good to remember those things, you know? Just like what we call the Lord's Supper, communion. We do that just so we can remember him and what he did. And just like this morning, we're remembering him and remembering his thoughts and his ways. And
that's
the
critical.
love that he has for us.
Yeah, that's important, is remembering things, because the tendency is to forget. It's so easy. We say, yeah, I know that, but I kind of forgot that. And usually whenever you say the word, I'm sorry, but I forgot, something went wrong, didn't it? How many times have we ever said, I'm sorry, but I forgot?
So what's the Shabbat, the prayer that the Hebrews say every day or all the time?
Shema.
Shema?
Shema.
Shema. Okay.
Yeah. Shema really means to listen or hear. Yeah, that's a little prayer that.
But it puts things in perspective.
Yeah, every morning when they wake up, every night when they get ready for sleep, and when a child is born or when somebody's dying, they pray the Shema. You know, what's the Shema?
Hear, O Israel, the Lord your God, the Lord is one.
Yeah. Hear, Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord our God is one Lord. That's what it is. It's a little bit more to it, but that's the basic. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. That's what they pray that twice a day, every day. What's so important about praying the Lord our God is one Lord? You say it twice a day. Why?
Well, you have to understand what the word one means.
Well,
That's important too.
that's true. But the reason why you say anything over and over and over every day, why?
So they can remember.
Because you forget so
Yeah.
quickly. If you forget that God is one, in India, they say they have over 1,000 gods they recognize in India. In ancient Egypt,
Yeah.
when Moses was sent down there, they would say, he said, God has sent me to save you. And they would say, which God? The Egyptians have hundreds of gods. They got the fish god, the frog god, the river god, the thunder god, all these gods. So if you forget that our God is one God, you know what will happen? Satan will come along and say, well, yeah, let me tell you about all these others. And the next thing you know, we're into idolatry. Idolatry is the number one evil that God says you shall have no other God before you. If you forget that he is one God, and it doesn't mean he is the first God. First is involving number one. But if we say that God is the first God, by implication, what would that mean?
There's more than one.
There must be a second God. If there's a second God, then there must be a third God. And if there's a third God, there's thousands of them. It just goes on forever. He says he is not the first God. He is the one God. Matter of fact, in Genesis, where it says the morning and the evening, in our translation says was the first day. Not the right word. Hebrew says it was day one. If it's the first day, then there'd be others like it. But all the other days were called the second day, the third day, the fourth day. Because whenever you say second, third, or fourth, it implies there's more coming. But if there's only day one, it means there's no other like it. Because this is the beginning day. You only have one beginning.
Day,
when you're doing anything, as soon as you've done the beginning, that's it. There is no more beginning. Now you go on. There's only one beginning. See that? If you say it was the first day, then you say then the first beginning, then there will be the second beginning, and the third beginning. You know, one thing the Mormons teach, the Mormons, not trying to knock them, but it's just part of they think that in eternity we'll go on creating more and more and more. We will become creators, creating more and more. There's only one creation day, one day. There's not more and more and more, because the minute you change it from one day to the first day, well, who's going to do all this more creating? God's the only one. He did that creating. So you're going to do that? You see what happens. They immediately elevate ourselves to the position of God. But God is the only God. He's not the first God. He is the one God. This was not the first day. It's day one. That's just a slight change in the Hebrew, but or in the
English. Yeah.
But can you see what that does?
Yeah.
You know, it's a temptation to, I don't know, I guess religious people is the only way to say it. When somebody hears that just a slight difference is going to change the direction, I'm not conveying my thought well, but you know, people tend to say that there's something wrong with it if a slight change will, you know, wreck the whole system or change the whole direction. And do you know what I mean?
Maybe. I had a gal one time, one of her teachers, she said, "Oh, you're just using semantics."
Right.
What does semantics mean?
Details.
Yeah. Oh, you're just little details that change. Like, you shouldn't let that bother you. Well, you know, if someone asks you for directions to go someplace, okay, you go down this street for 2 miles, and you come to the intersection, turn left and go 3. And so the guy leaves, and you say, "Did I say turn left? I should have told him to turn right." It was just semantics. It won't matter. So where's that guy going to end
He's
up?
gonna go off the cliff.
He don't know where he's going. It was just one word. Is that a big deal? Depending on what the word is, doesn't it? If he says turn left when he should have said turn right, well,
The difference between A and the,
Yeah. So
the one word.
a lot of times, you know, you're another thought you just brought up. When John the Baptist saw the Lord walking along the Jordan River, he says, "Here's the Lamb that takes away the sin of the world." If he said, "Here is a lamb,"
There would be multiple.
yeah, you know, if you were going to bring an offering in the old days to the temple, you had to bring a perfect lamb. So it says, here's a guy, he has 1,000 lambs. He goes out in the field to get one to take for a sacrifice. So it says he takes a lamb. He calls it a lamb because he's got a whole bunch of them. Now, the A is just one of many. The minute you take a lamb, that lamb then becomes the lamb, because this is the one you're going to take to the offering. So as long as it was a lamb, there's lots of them. But the minute you turn it to the lamb, then all the others are out of it. You've just got one. And then it says you take your lamb to the temple. So it goes from a lamb, which is one of many, to the lamb, which is the only one, to your lamb, which is your offering. Can you see how those little words, if you took a lamb for an offering, well then how about all those others, hundreds of them, you know? But he narrows it right down, not only to one, but to it's your lamb. If it's not your lamb, then what are you doing taking it there? No, not yours, somebody else's, you know. But it brings it right home to you. And those are just little words, a, the, and your. Do they matter?
Yeah.
If you took any one of those words and put something else, if you said take a lamb to the temple for your offering, well, maybe it's got spots or it's got blemishes or it's something wrong with it, you know. Because the lamb has to be perfect. What about all the others? We don't care about them. They're out there doing their thing. but the one you're going to offer must be the right one. And if it isn't your lamb, then it's not your offering. So it becomes nothing, you know. So all those little words, they're important.
I guess I kind of see it as like those first few days when there was something covering the sun,
Mm-hmm.
and there was something obstructing the
Vision.
light coming in.
Yeah.
But you know, only the Lord can expose that light and,
Yeah.
and make it shine. And you know, yesterday I didn't have the enlightenment that I have today,
Right.
because it's God who opens up those doors and lets me see a little
That's
bit
why they
different.
call it the living word, because we see new things all the time.
Yeah.
God pulls that veil off and says, look at this. And you go, wow, I never saw that
And it's
before.
not static,
Yeah.
it's dynamic.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can read the same psalm or something hundreds of times, and all of a sudden, well, I read that a jillion times, and all of a sudden I never even noticed this in it, you know, but it's right there. How come you never saw it before, you know? Maybe it wasn't time yet or something, but
I was trying to explain that to some kids in Sunday school, and you know, just the idea that it's a living Bible. And I said, well, just open it up. And they were kind of being rowdy, you know, and just trying to, you know, deflect the bad ones, and open it up and says, rowdy kids will get scolded by all their parents, and they go, ah!
That's good.
that's well, that often happens, that's for sure.
They ran in
Yeah.
and showed their parents. It was perfect.
The other morning, you know, the 22nd, that was Tuesday, was the first day of autumn. And I just was thinking about that early in the morning. Today is autumn the 1st. I looked the book in Joel, it says he will send the autumn rains along with the spring rain. Right there, brother, just said that. I just was thinking about it. So, you know, a lot of people, you know, they see...
Way to stop there, then just let
People
Yeah,
see
it was
fall
weird.
come. Oh, fall's coming! I dread, and they're always thinking about the coming winter. You know, but autumn is here for a good reason. It's a good time, not a time to be filled with dread. You know, people. I just dread the winter. Well, then, go live in Southern California. You'll like it there.
It's hot.
It's hot and
It's
on
on
fire.
fire.
But they don't have any winter there. They wish they did have some winter.
I gotta go. That is a good lesson
Yeah.
for me today.
Yeah.
Well,
I am thankful.
I'm
Yeah.
glad you're here,
See ya.
Mr. Frank.
Thank
Carry
you.
on.
Appreciate your hospitality.
Sure. Just, no.
Thank you, Mark.
Oh, yeah. I'm glad to
Yeah,
be of
boy.
service.
If we're going to continue this